Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another segment of the Henderson Voice podcast. We've heard from him several times, and we have Gary Thompson. He is our resident expert on all things legal. And so, again, Gary, welcome back.
All right. Thank you for having me. It's great to be back.
Thank you. Tell everybody, we'll start off with who you are, name of your business, and I've got questions for you.
Sure. Say Gary Thompson. I have my own law office, solo practice attorney, specializing in injury law. What does that look like most of the time? Car crashes. So most common, if you haven't seen a billboard or commercial or heard it on the radio, that means you haven't done any of those things. You live in a basement somewhere and you don't have any communication. There's lots of us out there. I don't advertise that way, and so I've always been referred, direct referrals and word of mouth. Yeah. And that's the way I like to practice. So injury attorney, I just celebrated 30 years practicing and have my office on Water Street.
I stepped in your office, was it yesterday?
Yeah.
2 days ago?
Monday, I think. Yeah. They're all running together.
Was able to see you back in there. And then, we've talked about, you announced your re-election. Going for the election, up for judge again. And then... and word of mouth. You've been in Henderson forever, and so word of mouth is one of those fortunate things you probably get a lot, direct referrals. But I wanted to touch today, and we touched on in the past about some of the traffic issues and some of the ticketing process and all that stuff. We can you can find all those on the links, but today it's kind of something we talked about earlier. But it's the process of what happens specifically, probably in maybe an injury case where a lot of those things get settled between insurance companies or whatever it may be, but what happens when it goes to trial and or the whole jury process in and of itself? And you've got both sides of it. You're an attorney, so you deal with that side of it. And then recently we were just talking about like you're on the citizen side, I guess is what you would call it. Yeah. So you actually reported for jury duty, or the process. So tell us about that. I did.
So last week I get the call, and I actually I thought that was unusual because I got called last year as well, and so usually don't get the call that often, and so it had been like 10 years before that, and so last year I was one strike away from being on a jury. That was in February. This time I'm like, wow, I got pretty close. I want to serve on a jury. I just don't think. Between the judge and the parties, someone's not going to want me on a jury because I'm going to end up influencing that jury. I think it's just because they're going to look to me. Even when I was in the pool, the jury pool was asking me questions as they were going through the process. Well, what can we expect? How long is this going to take? Because they found out I was an attorney.
Right, and doing it so long, it's hard to look at it. You've got all the legal knowledge of all these years, so you're going to look at it very differently as opposed to somebody like me who's can maybe be swayed by the empathetic or sympathetic points that people will bring up.
So again, this year I actually have sat through two-week jury trials on the attorney side, and so we went through the whole process. 3 or 4 days of selecting a jury. Going through all the voir dire and all the questionnaires, striking people for cause and not for cause, just peremptory challenges, and then going through 2-week jury trial through deliberation. And so that's unusual as well. The jury trials, full jury trials don't come along very often, but I've done 2 this year, and now I've been in this last 2 years, I've been called for jury duty twice. And so it's interesting to be on both sides. And it's a good experience. I would love to serve on a jury. I just don't think I'm ever going to get there.
It's that full circle of what you do. And so that kind of leads me into, we'll talk with your experience on the attorney side. Like, is there a general, like, blanketed reason for striking somebody? Are there visual cues, or if you've got, like, tell me some of those things. I know you can walk in, each side has so many that they can automatically strike. Is that the way it works, or how does an attorney?
Yeah, what you're looking for are, conflicts right off the bat. If you know the parties, you know what's going on, you know the judge, the attorneys, or any of the litigants or the witnesses that are going to come up. So if you know them, if you're friends with them, if you've done business with them, you may have some sort of bias, either good or bad. You may have had a bad experience with a business, and then you find out that person's a litigant. You might look on them in a negative light, even before you know what's going on with the trial. And so any biases is what you're really looking for. And so first, it's all, you're looking at relationships. And I suspect I was struck from this last one quickly because I knew the marshal in this, and she had been, when I sat as an alternate judge early on, like one of the first things I did for the city of Las Vegas was fill in for 6 months in their doing their traffic commissioner stuff. And she was my marshal for 6 months. And you work very close with your marshal.
Right.
You know, it's like you're a team. And so I got to know her really well. She got to know me really well. And so it was, as soon as I saw her, I'm like, and they ask, the judge is like, do you know me or any of my staff? I'm like,
it's a big high five
yeah,
and a hug when
I
you
do.
walk in.
Right. I go, I know your marshal very well. She's one of my favorites. And she has been one of my favorite marshals, you know, over the last 15 years.
And so is it the judge that strikes you with the relationship, or is that still the sides, the attorneys?
Well, at that point, the judge is going to look at, you know, again, conflicts and biases, and perhaps, you know, it's going to look, because I knew so many people, or at least I had a close relationship with the marshal. Again, maybe people would look at me as a little more authoritative, you know, being an authority figure on the jury, and I may have swayed them one way or the other because I know the marshal. And so, again, it's just looking at biases and trying to avoid any conflicts like that. So as soon as we got back from lunch, she didn't make a record of why I was struck. I was just struck. And so, and there was a bunch of us. I had some medical conflicts as well that could have been, as you know, this was going to be a 2-week jury trial. And
you had some upcoming things.
I did have some upcoming appointments that had been set for about 3 months.
Oh, gotcha. So they take a look at all that stuff.
Yeah.
I guess in my experience, I haven't been called for jury duty in Nevada, and I've been here 10 years now. I'm probably jinxing myself, which is terrible.
You're getting it in, man.
But in Arizona, I did, and I was struck. It was very general. I think the attorney asked us a question. There was a bunch of us, and they said, very general, like, whoever had something stolen from them that was more than $5,000. And I raised my hand, and they're like, all right, you're out of here. It'll give us a kind of a quick thing. So it was one answered one question, and I was out. So is it something that people should be afraid of when they get this? I know the immediate response is everybody goes, oh man, like they immediately start looking for excuses as not to report. So what would be your advice, or should somebody try to go through that process maybe to understand the legal system a little bit better, or is it the experience?
So on the service side, I would say this is one of the most important things that we do as citizens. Having the ability to have a jury, a trial from a group of your peers is just critical for our system. And so we need good jurors. And so and I'm biased on this side because I practice in law. They are so critical to what we do, is that you want a good group to come in and serve and be excited about serving. It's hard because we all have things going on. Life happens. We got kids to take care of and work and appointments, and there's 1,000 reasons why not to serve. If you get a chance, I just suggest serve on a jury if you can. Yeah. It's probably never going to work for me. I want to serve on a jury, which means I'm going to get struck probably every single time. But, it's something I would like to do somewhere along the way. I wouldn't fear it. I would embrace it if you can, because it is so critical to our system.
Yeah, it's like voting. It's a yes. right, and it's part of what makes us, the nation that we are. So those processes, hopefully, they never go away. That would be a scary, scary day. So.
And I think back to your question, what do you look for as a jury? It really is critical to the specifics of the case. So if you have, like, this latest one was a medical malpractice case. If I had been through a situation where I felt I was a victim of medical malpractice, and they asked me that question, and perhaps yours was a criminal case where someone had stolen something over $5,000, like taken something from them. If you have that personal experience, you may have a bias against one side or the other. And so that's what they're really looking for. So when those questions come.
And so walking in, when you're sitting in that room and possibly being selected, do they tell you what the case is about, or they select you first?
No, right off the bat. The judge comes in and explains, this is a civil case, this is a criminal case, here are some basic facts, and they really introduce the parties. So you're gonna find out a little bit about each party. You're gonna find a little bit about each attorney, You're going to meet all the staff, and they're going to run through all the witnesses to see if you have any personal connection with them.
So the person, say this is a criminal case, or you're the plaintiff and whatever, or defendant, is that person sitting in the room? Are they part of the process? Or
Typically, yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So like if it was a criminal case, you're looking at the person who's being charged.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do they have any say in it too? Like, well, I guess because they could say, I stole from that guy or whatever, like, I don't know how that would work. That's crazy. I guess I wasn't.
I mean, certainly you're looking at any connection. There may be people you've known or had an interaction with in the past, and they don't remember you.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so it's really, again, you're looking for biases.
So are there repercussions if, say, you're on a jury trial, you get selected, and come to find out you lied about a connection, or like it can be a good thing. What are those repercussions that happen to you when they find that out? Like if it's somebody you're like, oh, this is my chance to get this person back from 20 years ago.
Sure.
What can happen to me as that person?
I'm not sure. I think I'm just wondering if we actually take an oath and you can be found like in contempt of court for lying to the misrepresenting yourself. There may be repercussions like that.
I would imagine that there has to be something, because would that ruin the entire trial and then you got to start back over?
Right. You could, at that point, probably one side or the other would move for a mistrial. In our 2-week trial up in, and we were up north in Minden, we had the husband of our client actually started to talk to a juror out in the hallway. And it was a fluff. Like, he didn't know him. He just knew that he was a high school football coach, and our guy was very friendly, and he's interested in high school football and saying, hey, our teams play each other on occasion. And the juror was like, I don't think you should be talking to me.
Oh, wow, yeah. That's got to be really tough in a small town, even though, like, yeah, I mean, Henderson's big now, but in a small town, like, the jury of your peers is in a town of 1,000 people. It's it's the people you see every day, you know? So that's got to be, I guess the smaller it is, the tougher it gets, because those connections can run deep.
It is tough. Up in Minden, and it's a small jury pool, a lot of the jurors knew each other because they work in the same companies. And so, again, you're looking at every conflict that may be, because if me and you are friends and we're on a jury, we might have more influence over what happens with that jury, or we might have influence with each other. Maybe I can talk you into something, you can talk me into something,
right?
One way or the other. And so you're trying to avoid all of those conflicts, and especially the look of them is bad, but you don't want that undue influence.
So we talked a lot about like some of the ways that traffic is done now in those traffic tickets, but is there ever an instance now where something in traffic, like a traffic violation, would go to a jury thing, or that is more always that like a civil thing, or with all the new general blanketed things, that's gone away, correct?
So there are a couple things have happened. Civil cases, you're actually entitled to a jury. However, they exempted traffic out of that.
Okay.
And then on criminal cases, you're not entitled to a jury unless it's a serious crime. And so like misdemeanor cases, generally you're not offered a jury trial. You're offered a trial, but it's going to be a bench trial. Now, they did come up, the municipal courts are limited jurisdiction, misdemeanor crimes. We had no jury trials sitting as a judge or as a prosecutor or as a defendant. However, we came across domestic battery where if you were convicted of a domestic battery, you actually lost your right to own a gun.
Right.
And so once you've lost a Second Amendment right, it became a more serious offense. Okay. And it was argued all the way up to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said, look, if that's the penalty, if you're going to lose a Second Amendment right, then this is going to be considered a serious crime, and you're entitled to a jury trial.
Gotcha.
And so all the courts had to adjust to that. We had to, here in Henderson, we had to design a courtroom that had a jury box, because in that limited jurisdiction, we didn't need a jury. So we didn't have a jury box in the courtroom. So we had to totally redesign a courtroom to handle jury trials. And we had to have a jury services room. And we had to have a process to get them.
Oh, that changes everything, the whole process of it. That's pretty intense.
And so that came in a couple of years ago. We don't have many because it's expensive to hire an attorney to defend you to sit through a jury trial because it's a process.
So what are the most common things that people go to a jury trial for? I know the civil stuff when you're suing a large corporation or wherever it's got these attorneys, and then I'm sure very large criminal cases, but what are maybe some of the more common ones that we don't even think about that might be going to a jury trial?
Yeah, you've actually nailed it.
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
It's the larger civil cases is what you're going to see. So, for instance, the one I was in on last week was a medical malpractice case, and they're asking for hundreds of thousands of dollars in compensation for this alleged medical malpractice. I have a good friend; he's a trial paralegal. They have another case going on. It's a injury case involving GM and a defect in their vehicle.
Oh wow!
And so that one is $50 to $100 million case, and so you're going to see a jury in that one. Generally one side or the other is going to want a jury, and either side can request it.
So they're more based on how large maybe the what you're seeking, because I mean they're expensive. And it's not the court fees that are expensive. It's the people, the attorneys. You're paying for 30 years in your case, 30 years of expertise, and that is not cheap. And You've got the other attorneys. So these things are very expensive. So you better be pretty sure. And in my opinion, you better be pretty sure that you're right, because it's going to be expensive to go down that path, and it takes a long time. And it's out of court, can't work. There's a lot of things that are going on.
And generally, our system is that you pay for your own attorney fees. So, but we also have kind of a little, if you sue somebody and lose, you could be liable for their attorney's fees and costs. So you really got to think about, you just don't get a free shot at everybody.
Yeah.
So it's a risk when you go to jury trial, and it's hard. You're going to open yourself up in any litigation. You're going to open the door to you. They get to find out about you, your finances. They're going to look at all your social media. They're going to look at everything they can to look at your credibility. Because if you're going to testify, they're going to want to know about it.
Excellent. Well, thank you for the information. It's
Absolutely.
Always great. We have these great conversations about stuff, and they typically continue on from here, or we talk about stuff before. But everyone looking for any help, any knowledge from an attorney, somebody who's been doing it for 30 years, and I imagine we'll see him in a courtroom as a judge over this next election. But Gary Thompson, down on Water Street. Ask anybody on Water Street. They know how to get a hold of you.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right.